What is up, everyone? My name is Alex, aka Doer, and today I have the pleasure to sit down with none other than Efrain, Hecho En Mexico, Escudero. He is the UFC's first Mexican-born fighter to hold a UFC contract. Efrain is a born fighter turned athlete who competed in the UFC's lightweight division and started his MMA career on a 12-fight winning streak, and even more if you count his Ultimate Fighter wins as well. Today, we're going to touch on his fight before the UFC, on his fight for the UFC, and then his fight after the UFC. Efrain, thank you for coming on the show. How are you, my guy?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm in California enjoying this nice weather, and we're heading to Knott's Berry Farm with the family.
That's very cool. Hopefully you get to enjoy. You're going to be out there for multiple days or just for the day?
And we're going today. We're going to do the whole Knott's Berry Farm, and then tomorrow we're going to be at the beach and enjoy the scenery and everything.
Very cool. All right. Well, why don't you take us back and let's start with growing up in Mexico, coming to the States, and talk to me about your humble beginnings as a kid.
So one of the biggest things for me is, some of the my stories to be told is I at the age of 7, I literally jumped the border. I'm not lying.
Yes. It's not. Yeah, you're not just saying it.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not lying. We literally, but it was very easy back in the day. We probably ran. I don't even know if I can get in trouble for saying things like this. I ran 100 yards, and all of a sudden, my parents were there, and then after that, they applied for a student visa, and then it was very hard for me to go down to Mexico again because there's three ways of getting a residency or getting into America, which is one, you're going to get married to an American citizen. I'm 7 years old. There's no way I'm going to marry anybody. Second is you enter a lottery, which pretty much they tell you this is your number, and it takes forever.
That could take years. That could take years, I've been told. Yeah.
And then the other one is your parents are U.S. citizens. My parents didn't want to become U.S. citizens. Now they're U.S. citizens. I'm like, what the hell? So it took me 13 years. So my upbringing was a little rougher than most. I was a troubled kid. I was I felt that the world was against me, and everywhere I went, people wanted to affect me in a way that it really didn't really matter where. I didn't know any English. I didn't know anything like that. So I felt that the world was against me in some sort of way, So what was I to do? I was to go ahead and try to fight and try to be very.
You were aggressive. You reacted aggressively out of it to defend yourself.
Yes, that's how I attended to everything,
So, there's a lot to unpack there. You said I literally jumped the border. So do you actually at the age of 7 remember that? Like, you remember that vividly, that moment of actually coming across and what that experience was? Or do you just know it happened, but you don't really, recall it too well?
No, I recall the moment. I recall the moment in itself, especially with my, I was playing with soccer with the kids, just in the neighborhood. And as I'm playing soccer, all of a sudden I just hear my mom and my dad just say like, "Hey, get your stuff." I remember running, get in the back of a truck. We're kids. We want to run in the back. We don't want to get. Yeah. And as soon as I jump in the back of the truck, we drive, and they have a ladder in the back of a truck. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. They literally pulled up, put a ladder, and then I jumped up, and that was it. Dude. Like, they just told me what to do, and I did it. And it was, to me, I didn't know what was going on. Obviously, my kids are, I have an 8-year-old and I have a 12-year-old, and I believe that if I told my son, my 8-year-old, hey, you got to run, you got to jump, that's what he has to do, So with me, it was a little harder for that,
Yeah, you trust your parents at that age. They're not going to question it,
Yeah, they told me jump and swim, so that's exactly what I did.
And so you come at the age of 7, you say, you don't know a lick of English. How many years before you start to, feel comfortable speaking English?
Well, at that age, you're kind of like, you're gravitating to everything you hear, right? my parents didn't know any speak of English at all, so they weren't helping me with my homework. I didn't really care for the homework,
Yeah.
so I was that kind of intruded more into my aspects of getting in trouble, having to defend myself. So then all of a sudden I started becoming a very mean person. Like
Okay.
like you would make fun of me because and I this is where this saying grew on me. Um, I became so good at what I was doing that everybody I would be like, "Oh, you're so smart. You're so smart. Well, can you kick my ass? Answer me
Yeah.
that." So that's where that grew, and it was like that was my only answer to everything. No matter
Yeah.
what, violence was like I would they would make fun of me for my English. It took me about uh, almost like half a year, like roughly about 6 months, to me to be able to kind of like understand what you were telling me, and then like the next I was like, okay, I got to learn this, you know. So then I
Yeah.
would like the teachers would really like help me out, but it was rough for me because I only talked English at school. When I got
Yeah.
home, it was back to Spanish, so it was a little
Yeah.
rougher.
And I imagine that you correct me if I'm wrong here, that your parents probably there wouldn't be too much of a consequence for you defending yourself. They would actually want you to defend yourself early on. Maybe as you got more into your teen years, they were like, cut it out. Would that be
No,
accurate?
yeah, they Mexican and heritage and
Hmm.
Mexican parents or any like southern like South Americans, they always say, "Si te van a pegar, te voy a pegar aquí en la casa otra vez yo."
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that means like if you get your ass kicked, I'm gonna kick your ass at home too. You know, so you better make sure you
yeah.
don't
Don't
lose.
get two ass whoopings out
Yeah,
of this.
yep, yep. So make it count.
Yeah. So, when does wrestling come into your life? How does that get on your radar?
Okay, so going back again, so I'm just on a little storyline, right? So
Yeah.
I'm 7. Then I decided by the age of 10 I was already trying to be a gangster, right? So I got jumped
Okay.
into a gang. I got
Dang.
jumped into a gang. Next thing you know, I'm hanging out with people that are like all tatted up in the face and everything, and to me that was cool. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm part of the crew, like
Yeah. Of course.
made me feel part of something, which in reality it was. Come on, I got these little kids that you guys can see in the back. I was about their age, and if they're like hanging out with gangsters, best believe I'm gonna whoop their ass.
Hmm.
It's like, what are they doing? But I never had that. So I was getting into trouble, getting into trouble. And there was this one guy. His name was Jose Pepe Moreno. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, Pepe Moreno was one of the guys. He was a high school wrestling coach and then eventually became my godfather. So
Okay.
him and himself um, was just like, man, you're very good at what you do. You're going to become a fighter. You're going to become a wrestler. And I was
Yeah.
like, I ain't going to wrestle. I ain't going to put those little tights. And I kept telling him, I ain't putting those tights. And he's like, you're going to wrestle. You're going to wrestle. You're going to wrestle. Next thing you know, I was like, no, I'm not. Um, he gave me absolutely no choice but to wrestle.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't have a ride. And he'd be like, don't worry, I'm outside. I'm picking you up. And then he would pick me up. And then he'd be like, I'll be like, God. So then I started wrestling. He gave me my first pair of wrestling shoes. They were bright yellow. They were nasty and ugly. And then I'm
It was
about
the
to,
look you were going for. Bright yellow shoes,
oh,
tight
man.
shorts.
And they were like use wrestling shoes. But he was a wrestler at the time at ASU. But he would
Yeah.
come down every weekend and was like, "Man, you're gonna wrestle." So if it wasn't for him, I kid you not, I would have never accomplished anything that I have accomplished.
Yeah,
So
you would have probably ended up in a completely different route, maybe not even be here should you have stayed in that gang life.
oh
Do you
man,
still
it
stay in
was
touch with him?
yes, he is my godfather now. Um,
Okay,
so
okay, great, great.
Yeah, so he was a math teacher. He sometimes will I call him and be like, "Hey man, this is my landline. I need tutoring for my daughter because this math homework
Yeah, yeah.
forgot like 3 pages. It's like now I'm not." So so I go with him. He starts giving me that like you're not going to continue to live the life you're living, and I'm like, man, whatever. And then here it goes. I'm 14. Boom, I get sentenced to the military program
Wow.
twice. So this is how, like, we see it as nowadays what it is, right? Like, you get sent to like these boot camps, and they're supposed to like scare you straight, like.
Yeah, yeah,
So I get sent to the military program, and this is where my love for the team aspect and team bond kind of like helped me out, because the drill instructors, they pretty much treated us like you're a whole, and you're as strong as your weakest link.
yeah, yeah,
So then I was like, man, and I remember this one occasion where he's like, I want you to take, like, there was about 50 yards. He said he was about a 3 foot hole, and he says, I want you to take this hole all the way to like the 50-yard mark, right? I was like, I want you to take it over there. And I'm like, what? I'm kind of like 14. I
yeah,
was like, naive, not knowing what I was doing. So then all of a sudden I was like, take it over there. So I thought, make a hole over there and bring it over here.
yeah,
He saw me watching him as I was doing it. So he saw me noticing that he was looking at me. So then
yeah.
all of a sudden he let me finish until I was almost done. And he comes in and he says, what are you doing? I was like, I'm doing what you told me. And he's like, I said, take it. That means you're going to make a hole, a hole, a hole, a hole, a hole, a hole. And literally it took me about a whole week to do it. But I kid
Shit.
you not. But every day he would get there and be like, how's my hole coming? How's my, like I kind of felt like, oh, like, wait, what? Are you calling me a hoe? Like kind of
Yeah, yeah,
like calling me like names? And he's like, he'd be like, I'm talking about the digging, It's like, because now I was prideful, remember? I was like that little gangster kid, and they wanted to mess me up mentally, physically. They wanted to break me down.
yeah,
I loved it. I loved it. And that's when I was like, as soon as I came back, I put every effort into the whole wrestling,
yeah,
because I felt that team. I was craving that family that I didn't have at home. Because like I said, my brother was doing 14 years in prison. My other brother was in another prison, and you know, I was destined to go into the same route. It was accepted for us to go to jail. Like, and that,
the
that
your brother's doing time that was in the States, so like between 7 and 14. By now you see this happen, this is how it happened and unfolding in front of your eyes.
yeah, yeah. Even to now, I'm 38 right now, and I have a brother doing life in prison. So
Wow.
they chose the different paths. I'm trying to live the best life that I can, but obviously when it comes down to that, it's opportunity, man.
Yeah,
Opportunity presented itself, and some people capture it, and some people let it slip. And I think for itself, and what I stand for is, I just felt. I think those drill instructors. I think that Pepe Moreno. I think everybody that helped me at a young age kind of shaped my life for better.
yeah,
Because I was on a one-way street to no good, because I
yeah,
was I was a very mean person when I was a kid. I was a very mean, like, if you looked at me and I felt that you were trying to disrespect me, it would be on site, like we would
yeah.
fight.
It didn't take much to get you to want to fight. Yeah,
Like anything, like, but see, back in the day we were like you could still fight, nobody was gonna shoot you. But
yeah. Now it's so different, right? Yeah,
nowadays you gotta watch out.
yeah. And so you get two of these boot camps, let's call it, and you decide like, yeah, no, I need to definitely give it all into this wrestling thing. Would you say once you put your focus to it, it came pretty natural to you? Because you ended up, crushing in wrestling. Did you really quickly realize like this is something that I have a knack for?
I've been always very self motivated. I
Yeah.
always uh, I always seek motivation out of anything that I see. And
Hmm.
I remember this. I was in eighth grade going into, so I was short. I hadn't gave my whole sprung, like, like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
you're kind of like growing as a kid, and then all of a sudden your friends are growing, and you're like, man, what's going on? Well, I was a short one, chubby, and I was like, man. And then from seventh grade, from seventh to eighth, I remember I was like, man, I want to go to college, man. Like, it's gonna be so cool. Because I was looking
yeah,
at, now my mentors was like Pepe Moreno, which was actually the guy that got me into wrestling. So I was like, man,
yeah,
I want, like, what would it be like? I'm the youngest out of five. Like, I'm the youngest out of five. I'm the first one to graduate high school, and the
yeah.
first one to even think about going to college. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go to college. And I was like, wait. And I remember this, and literally sat down and I wrote everything down, like I with a piece of paper. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember, probably my mom. I still have this paper where it says, "I will go to college," on the top, and it says, "Write how you're gonna go to college." And I put nothing.
Yeah.
Like that's where it ended. Like that's where it
Yeah.
ended. So I'm like, man, what the hell? So then I kept that idea, just kind of like that seed. Just kind of, I
Yeah.
never watered it, but it was just there. I was like, man, how am I gonna go to college? Um, Maybe student loans or do everything. Next
Yeah.
thing you know, it was from eighth to ninth. I told myself, you know what? Same piece of paper, right? Same piece of paper. I wrote down the first thing. It says, "You're going to be people you're not supposed to beat. You have to be people you're not supposed to beat." And I was like, and that kind of like that took, even for the Ultimate Fighter, even in the UFC.
Yeah.
That's that was my go-to.
You
That was
recall that every time.
every single time. I was like, you're supposed to. So when I'm scared, when I'm nervous, when I'm like, I'm not scared, but when you get the butterflies
Yeah.
and you get like that guy's tougher, I always tell myself, remember what you told yourself as a kid,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to beat people you're not supposed to beat.
That's right.
That's just a matter of the fact. You're gonna have to shock the world. That's how you're gonna make a name for yourself. Obviously it didn't come to now, almost within 2 months. 2 months ago, I figured out kind of like why I became so good at wrestling. It wasn't because I wanted to go to college. So I kind of did some self searching, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of went through a whole, like, looking at life in itself, and I looked at everything from a different perspective. So I was just, I wanted to give my parents the opportunity to watch me succeed. So every single time when I told myself, you're gonna have to beat people you're not supposed to beat, well, I was like, well, why would I go out there and win tournaments that I wasn't supposed to win? And to me, it was like I wanted my parents to watch me in the newspaper. My parents never got to watch me wrestle my state finals, one match. Picture, I've wrestled throughout my whole life. I was part of the world team. I wrestled everywhere, overseas, everything, and my parents only watched me wrestle one time, and that
Is
was
this because of their work schedule and just
their
like
work
the
schedule.
financial? Yeah.
No, it was very hard for us. It was like
Yeah.
they had to work the fields, and it wasn't that they didn't want to.
Correct.
Um, when I graduated, my mom, and my dad weren't they weren't there. They were afterwards. When they got home, like we did something at home, but like an actual graduation, no. Um, my first communion and confirmation. Obviously, I know I'm starting to make my parents look kind of like
No,
bad,
not at all. Not at all.
but
They were grinding out there.
yeah. So
Yeah.
one of the biggest things for me, it was like my parents were like different type of love back in the day. It was like there's food. I mean, obviously you can relate. There was there's food. You got a warm bed. I love you.
Absolutely.
That's what love is.
That's the most important piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now these kids get to go to Knott'sberry Farm and
Yeah.
places like that. Um, but but to me, that kind of like I wanted to be on the newspaper. I wanted to show them off, and this is where it became kind of like natural to me. Once I decided I want to go to college, um, my first year, I had a conversation, and recently I was just talking to him. His name is Army Ordonez.
Hmm.
At the time, he was wrestling during the same time as me, but he was a senior. No, yeah, he was a senior. I was a freshman, and I remember I got my ass whooped every single day, like they whooped my butt, but my grind was there.
Yeah.
I was relentless. I wanted to be the best shaped kind of guy. I was the
Hmm.
guy that would be down 10-0. And come the third round, everybody be like, "Oh, he coming."
Yeah.
So then that's when I told myself. I had a conversation with Army, and I said, "Hey, Army, I'm gonna be a state champ." And he's like, "Bro," he's like, I'm gonna be a state champ." So from ninth grade to senior year, every single day. Absolutely, holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, no Thanksgiving, Christmas. I ran at least 30 minutes every single day for the
Mhm.
next 4 years.
Was it
It was,
easy to stay focused during those high school years when there's at that age? Because you and I are basically the same age, and around that time there was a whole lot of gang violence. I would say a little bit more amplified than what I feel it is, like what it looks like now. How easy was it to stay focused on that?
see, for me, it's like once you start, like during that time, if you just had the drive to do something better and you just wanted to do it, but see, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have any of
Yeah,
that growing up, so it was very easy. I mean, I would break up with my girlfriend every wrestling season because like it was dumb retarded. I'd be like, hey, we're breaking up. She'd be like, what? I was like, wrestling season is coming up. I can't have any distractions. And she'd be
yeah,
like, what the hell are you doing? Like, and I'll be like, we're done. And then we're still hanging out like we're dating, But like it was crazy. Um, but I was that. That's what wrestling meant
yeah,
for me. That's how bad I wanted it. And gang violence was not around because I was hanging out with the guys wrestling, the guys running, the guys working out. Gangsters didn't want to work.
yeah,
Gangsters don't dance. They went,
yeah,
what was that song? But but then all of a sudden we kind of parted ways, like, and they always kept an eye from a distance. And then every time I would be like, and then all of a sudden people started recognizing that I was pretty good,
yeah,
and I was trying to climb in the ladder, and then all
yeah,
of a sudden I would win tournaments that I wasn't supposed to win, and then I would be getting cheered on by people that I had no idea. Like back nowadays, you see the social media and they're like, oh,
right,
somebody recognizes you. Well, it's because of social media. Back in the day, somebody recognized you, you must be doing something right. I was
yeah,
like, so then I had the support of the homies, of the gangsters. Now
yeah,
I'm running throughout the day, throughout the evening. I'd be like, hey, pick it up. Like even the big homies, were like
yeah,
the OGs. We're like, hey man, pick it up. And then you got active gang members and OGs coming out of prison that look at you and see something good. They're gonna motivate you.
yeah,
Nowadays, compared to the gangsters now, it's a little different. But the OGs will always tell you, man, hey, if you can do something with your life, do it, right?
yeah.
I mean, obviously, my brother will always tell me, man, I feel like I give my whole life away. He'll be 60 by the time he's out. That's a whole life,
That
behind
is a whole
bars.
life. But the good news for him is he's still gonna have another, all like wishful thinking at least another 30, 40 years.
Yeah,
Right? There's no reason to think that way, right? Like that he still has a whole another life he can live. Like, yeah, a lot was given up, but hopefully you're able to also be there to influence him and make him believe that he can still do that.
well, one of the biggest things for me is like no matter what you do in life, we make our own mistakes.
Yeah.
Obviously, sometimes we just gotta say, yes, you know what, I made a mistake. Even myself, even after winning the show, after being
Yeah.
in the UFC, I've made so many mistakes. And I
Accountability.
went down a path, and eventually, like you guys will know about it, I went down a path that I shouldn't have gone, and
Yeah.
I was like, it kind of shaped me. My
Yeah.
kids see me as a superhero, right? Like if they only knew that they're the ones that saved my life, like
Yeah.
because growing up in the age that I'm at, at times you kind of like, who are you gonna cry to? You can't call your mom, and you can't call your dad, and you can't. They were taught like, don't talk about your problems.
Yeah.
There's
Bottle it
weakness.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we bottle everything up, and it's just it's crucial, and sometimes it just affects us. So once again, I had to go back to the drawing board. I had to dig deep, and I had to be like, okay, what's going on? um, but going back to like
Yeah.
those ages, going back to that stage of where I was at in life, I go, and my parents weren't there, so I wanted to give them that luxury. I wanted them to see me and feel proud, and
Hmm.
eventually it was proud. And then here comes senior year, the year that I'm gonna be a state champ. Right, you got
Yeah.
um, one less thing to worry about. This is the year you pick it up. I'm going. and I'm going to state finals. I told my mom and I told my mom and my dad at the time. I was like, "Hey, mom, can you guys go watch me?" And this is the first time I ever in my life actually I told my parents like, "Hey,
Yeah.
can you guys go watch me wrestle one tournament?" My mom and my dad were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go." And my brother, the one that's doing live, he actually told them, "If you make it to the finals, we'll be there."
Okay.
I was like, that little, excuse my language, but
No, you're good.
that little asshole was like picking a motivation under my skin because he knew how much I cared for it, you know. So
Yeah.
he motivated me in a way that I can't explain, you know. So um, I, uh, I ended up being in the finals, and I'm staring across a guy. His name is Kareem Abdul. Everybody in Arizona knows him
Okay.
during that time because he was a 3-time runner-up. He
Okay.
was 3 years in the finals, consecutive years, year after year after year.
Just
He,
falling
I,
a little short.
yeah, and he looking at me across, and he's talking so much crap. Remember, at this time, I'm still gangster, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go, let's do this. And this guy is like, man, I earned that. And then I kind of like catch myself in a conversation with him. He's like, my name's already on there. I've done my time. And I was like, oh yeah, he has done his time. And I'm like, over there, like kind of agreeing with him and like inside my head. And I'm like, he has earned his time. He's been here 3 times in a row. Like, yeah. So I'm like, wait, what am I doing here? Like, snap out of it. My coaches are like, hey, and I remember this. I remember his name is Barney Orta. He comes to me and he's like, "Hey, look!" And we look at the stands, and it was my mom and dad and my brother watching me. There was no way I was gonna lose in front of my parents. You know, first time they ever come watch me, I'm like, "All right, cool." The match starts. Boom! Less than 15 minutes. He made it look so easy. Takes me down. Like
Yeah.
I kid you not. Like it
Yeah.
looked like he was drilling. Like it wasn't even
Wow.
like no
Yeah.
nothing. Like comes makes it look pretty. Boom! Takes me down. I'm like, I literally was on bottom thinking like, I'm just gonna lose in front of my parents. Like, why did I
Yeah.
have them watch me? So I was like, so next thing you know, I start building my confidence, and I'm like, no, screw this. Well, I ended up beating them. The score was a three to five. I ended up winning
Wow.
3-5. I ended up winning. That's when the recruiting started happening. That's when the college opportunities started to go.
All right, I need to pause you there. I need to pause you there because that right there, I mean, for your kids listening, I think there's so much that you can take from that because I wasn't sure where that story was going. If you're like, dude, and I came up short, or if he came up short 4 years in a row, and it's one of those things where he clearly prepared every year to get to the finals, and that's kind of life right there. That even if you do everything right, guess what? Sometimes you're still gonna come up short. Like that is life, right? Not everything's like a Disney story where I tried. My parents finally made it to the number one, my only fight, and I won the state championship, right? Like I'm great. I'm happy that you shared that and that happened. But on the other side, like I'm imagining him 4 years in a row, it didn't happen for him. And I don't think it's due to a lack of him not preparing in any way. It's just two very competitive, talented people meeting, and somebody has to lose. And that's kind of part of the game, which I'm sure as we get later into your career, you had some of that happen to you on the opposite end, right? You did everything to prepare, but somebody else came out victorious.
Yes. Biggest thing to take it is so as soon as at my mom's house, you would walk out. Like if you were in the shower, it used to be like
Mhm.
a shower. As soon as I step out of the shower, there's a big mirror, and every single time I would picture and envision myself like raising my hands, like like winning, you know.
Yeah.
Every single day I did it. Like how am I gonna react? And I would tell myself, how am I gonna react? Like my whole high school career, like I was like,
Yeah.
if I would shower and I would just be like like this.
Yeah.
And when I won, I didn't do any of that. Like I just knew in my head that I was gonna win. Like
Yeah.
I knew it. It was just another day. And
Yeah.
and that's to me that's where it came. So now the recruiting like
Yeah.
starts coming in. Like people are starting to call me like, hey, we can offer you this now. the dream opens up. Like now, I'm like, I didn't know what I had just accomplished, right? So I just tell myself, like, oh, I'm gonna go to college, but then
Yeah.
I worked 4 years consecutively to go to college, and then I was like, well, nobody's ever gone to college. I don't know where to go. I'm a little scared to
Hmm.
leave home, you know. So then all of a sudden, I'm like, nah, you know what? If I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna leave to the military. So then the military pretty much saved me, right? I say like, oh, those drill instructors. So then I go and talk to a Marine recruiter.
Okay.
I take the whatever test we have to take. So I take this test, and they want me to sign this promissory note. And I said, all right, I'm waiting for one more college, and if this college calls me,
Yeah.
it was Piedmont Community College at the time. It was in Tucson. I really wanted to like kind of like leave home, but I didn't want to leave like way out there, you know. Like I didn't want to,
Yeah.
and then I
Too
didn't want to
far.
go to D1 right off the back because of the wrestling aspect. You know, once you go to D1, you're like with lions in there. So I kind
Hmm.
of wanted a baby step it kind of deal. So it was, I believe they told me it was like this certain day, and if it wasn't, the next day I was signed into the military. I was gonna go
Wow.
to the boot camp, and sure enough, they called. They called. I ended up going on a recruiting trip, and and that's where I met Drew Fickett. That's a whole different story because as soon as I get to as soon as I get to Piedmont,
Pima.
Piedmont
Yeah.
Community College, I start kind of feeding off the people. You know, I'm like all the great wrestlers, like all these guys that I'm
Yeah.
in there with. Uh, I'm setting the tone. I become the captain. I'm a freshman, becoming the
Dope.
captain of the team. Now I'm
Wow.
holding to a higher standard. So I'm like, okay. So then that's when my kind of leadership kind of began, and kind of like um, kind of guided me towards MMA. You know, because I saw how big the sport was growing, and I
Really?
saw how everything was like, man, I love fighting, and then wrestling. Like, man, I love two things.
What was that
Well,
earliest memory of MMA hitting your radar? Because I would imagine that maybe even you going through wrestling, maybe you were already watching it as well.
so there was a guy from Piedmont Community College.
Yeah.
His name was Jesse Forbes. I don't know if you guys recall him. He was on the Ultimate Fighter 5.
Okay. I don't recall him.
Okay, so he didn't really do much. He didn't really do much in the UFC, but so Jesse Forbes for me was like one of those guys that kind of like he kind of like shocked the world with to me, right? Like he was
Hmm.
in a reality TV show. I was like, I didn't know the guy, but because he was from Piedmont Community College, I was like, I would run home after practice so I could sit there and watch the Ultimate Fighter. Back in the day, it was on Spike TV, so I
Yeah.
would sit there and I would watch it, and I'd be like, oh hell yeah, and I would be rooting him on, and I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was like, one day I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. I didn't know what the hell I was getting myself into, you know,
Yeah.
because um, I would always even brag about him. I didn't even know him, but I was one of those guys that like, oh, Jesse Forbes, yeah, he was in our college, you know. I
Yeah.
would always so then I kind of was like, okay, I gotta be a man. I gotta know somebody. I gotta know a gym. So
Hmm.
everywhere I would go, everywhere I would go, I'll be like, hey guys, do you guys know where I can wrestle or where there's an MMA gym? All of a sudden, people will be like, oh, nah, man. Random people. Imagine you're at a bar right now, and then some guy just comes and be like, hey, man, you got you got some connections with what you're doing, right? Like, you know anybody that can help me with like wrestling or fighting or anything?
Yeah. It's just so random.
Random. Like, I would literally ask random people, and people be
Well,
like,
that speaks to how young the sport was, right? You didn't know really where to go look for it and find it.
yeah, I was like, oh my god, like crazy. So, long story short, this guy, he's like, oh man, gives me a business card. You should come check it out, man. Like, we have the best facilities. We got a cage and everything. When you like it, you become part of the fight team. I was like, golden. He said, call
Yeah.
tomorrow, first thing tomorrow. I didn't. By the way, I didn't really drink in high school. I didn't drink. I didn't like. I was narrow as anybody can go. I was
Yeah.
I didn't really start. I didn't really drink until I was 21. I
Do you
saw.
think people would be so people didn't know that you just knew how to be part of the crowd without having to, do any of that?
Oh man, it was back in the day. You didn't have to, man. You were outgoing. You were always growing.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, so this guy says, "Yeah, man, come on in tomorrow. Call me
yeah.
first thing tomorrow." I was kind of like his alarm clock. I called him. He's kind of like half asleep. His like voice is like so deep still. He's like, what time is it? I was like, man, I'm ready, man. Like, you want me to meet you there? He's like, meet me there at 12. I'm like, all right, done. Say
Mm.
less. The gym was Boxing Inc. at the time.
Okay.
Boxing Inc. I show up. I'm like, oh, next thing you know, I see people working out. I see the first time I ever see a cage. I'm like,
Yeah,
ooh, I'm like a little kid in Disneyland.
yeah.
That
You're
to me
having fun
was
with it.
like, yeah, I was like taking it all in. And he gives me this whole tour. And then he's like, you like it? I was like, yeah, I want to be part of this team. And then he says, all right, cool. It's going to be $200 a month.
Hey,
And
oh,
that's when my dreams crushed. I was like, what? I was living off a top ramen diet. I couldn't afford nothing. It's like, wait, can we work something? I'll clean the mats. I'll
yeah,
like do the cleaning, everything. And he's like, yeah, no man, I'm sorry, we got cleaning people.
yeah.
I'm like,
That's
God,
expensive, dude. This is what 2006, 2007.
2006.
Yeah, yeah. That's expensive. Then, like, that's a
And so,
lot of money. That's
yeah.
wild.
So
Even
I'm
now, it's a lot of money. But yeah, keep going.
so I'm like, man, this is where kind of like my dreams crush again, right? This is like little young kid, like doesn't want to do gangster stuff. He wants to be straight. He wants to like follow his dreams. A dream that he can't touch, feel, nor taste. Like it's just a vision that he sees in his head. And then all of a sudden, I was like, fuck. Like, so I'm sitting there just wondering and looking at everybody, and I'm like, how do I do it? How do I come up with money? Like, I'm not
Yeah,
I'm not adding to the problem, because if you have a problem and you say, well, yeah, you got to find solutions. So I say,
yeah.
how? So I switch my vocabulary to, how am I going to be able to afford this? How am I going to do this? So I start kind of game planning. After like 30 minutes, nothing comes to mind. I'm just sitting there. I'm
It
sitting
was your
there.
college paper all over again. How am I gonna go to college and nothing?
Yeah, nothing comes out. The guy even kind of felt like, man, well, if you decide later, like he already left. I'm just sitting there kind of like, man. And I'm seeing it, but I'm once again that little kid across the border, like seeing the
Mm,
fence and just kind of
yeah,
like, if I was just over there, it was like,
yeah,
and then I was like, man, well, screw this. I don't know if you're from Bolivia, everything happens for a reason.
hmm.
But I
I
got
am a
up,
believer.
I got up, and I was walking out the door. I was like, I decided to walk. Like I was walking, and as I was walking out, Drew Fickett was coming in at the same time. Drew
Hmm.
Fickett was a big time UFC fighter during that time,
Hmm.
so I knew already who he was. As soon as he comes, he's walking in, he's walking out. I'm like, oh my God, Drew! And he's like, Efrain. I was like, well, first of all, you know my name. I'm like,
Oh
what the?
shit, that's so
What?
dope.
Like he's like, yeah, man, I know you're one of the top recruits for this year for Puma. I'm like, oh my God. He's like, yeah, I all the coaches. I'm like, oh man. He's like, what? You signed up? And I was like, I can't afford it, man. So this is where Drew was like, nah, man, you'll be part of my team. He was fighting Kurt Pellegrino. He was getting ready for Kurt Pellegrino. He said,
Ah,
I'm fighting Kurt Pellegrino. I need a good wrestler.
yeah,
You're
come be a
part of my
body.
team. I need another body. You train. You help me with my wrestling, and I teach you MMA. I was like, I don't have to pay.
Dude,
He's like, nope. I was like, done. So
wow.
yeah. So then I was like, God. So all of a sudden I'm like back again, that little kid, right?
Yeah, yeah.
First day of practice. Look to the side. During the time he was a nobody. Dominic Cruz. I looked
I've
to,
heard that name before.
yeah. He's my teammate at the time.
Holy crap.
I'm
Wow.
like,
Uh-huh.
oh,
Who else?
yeah. It's crazy, huh? Like, so Dom and I started together. When I first started my first MMA career,
Did
I
he
was
already have his wild footwork or was it
yeah,
still developing?
it was still developing. It was Eric DeFiero that kind of like built him up to that. But
Yeah.
yeah, me and Dom became really good friends. He used to
Wow.
drive this Eclipse, Like, uh, we would back in the day. You can go to Wendy's and
Hmm.
pay an actual dollar for a burger. We were that
Okay.
broke. We were
Yeah.
that broke that we would
Yeah.
like break our piggy banks and we would go in his Eclipse. I had a
Yeah.
car that about a $400 car that every time you washed it, more paint came off.
It was changing colors every time you
Yeah.
watched
So
it.
everybody be like, "Fool, don't wash." But I wanted to keep it clean. You know, they're like, "Don't wash it, dude." So we embraced the struggle, right? We made the most out of it.
Absolutely.
So then all of a sudden, it became like Drew was not out there, but in the right way, right? He
Yeah.
would always be like, we would be watching UFC fights, and then all of a sudden he'd be like, see that move," and he would like stop everything and the whole party, and then he would try it on all of us.
Okay.
How did he do it? Like after the show, after the fights, we
Yeah.
weren't out party, like we weren't out partying. And be like, "All right, cool guys, we gotta go work out." It was like 1 in the morning. We're running sprints, you know,
Yeah.
like like we were that involved.
Yeah.
And so we all started fighting. All of a sudden, come 8 months in, I saw my first time ever my name on a Efrain Escudero versus George Roop. George Roop at the time, well, we seen his accomplishments. He was on the Ultimate
Yeah.
Fighter with me. He's fought right now owns one of the biggest marijuana grows in Tucson. Like
Okay.
he's a very
Dope.
big entrepreneur. Like, but during that time, we were scheduled to fight, and then boom, he gets injured. So then I fought this other guy who I had wrestled in high school.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. So I'm going against the wrestler. I remember we drove all the way from Tucson. We fought right there at the Fort McDowell Casino in Phoenix. I got my ass whooped in the parking lot because my nerves were so bad and I was
Yeah.
so anxious that my Drew Figure kept slapping me. Like, relax, relax, relax. And to me, it was surreal because now you have a troubled kid coming from like some, humble beginnings, trying to
Yeah.
make it, trying to jumps the border, has a dream to like accomplish something. Then all of a sudden, obstacle over obstacle after obstacle, kind of like affected me. Then I get sent to the military program, and actually, my son just said it a couple of weeks ago. He was like, "Hey, Dad, can I join the Young Marines?" You know,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Hey, I actually have one of those jackets, you know, because I still have my uniform." So I gave it to him. He has my actual jacket
That's
when I
so
got
dope.
sent. So it was kind of like that was a life changing, the
Hmm.
feeling part of something, and then it's just up to you to do the best out of it. You know,
Yeah.
it takes a team to get you there, but it's up to you to win. And
It's actually. Yeah.
I, I think that in itself just can generate in life. You know, it takes.
Let me tee you up. Let me tee you up for where you're going with your first fight. So this is 2006. You earn your first two professional fights. You win those. At This is at the age of 20, I believe I researched. But what I want to highlight, and then I'll let you run with it. In 2007, you continue this streak by competing 7 times within 6 months and win all of them by submission. Is this accurate?
It was 3 months. It was three
3 months.
months. 3
Then
months.
ESPN.com or whatever is wrong with the
Yeah,
dates, but yeah, I saw the dates just spanning. But in general, that's even more impressive. So how
yeah.
how are you taking this many bouts, and do you remember that time like really well?
I was so during my wrestling years, after a wrestling tournament, a big one,
Hmm.
even if I won it, you would see me run sprints every day after, because it's not about how you take, it's how you take the win, right? Like, to me, you got big time wrestling guys out there that always say you can win a tournament, but can you do it the next time?
Yeah,
It's not what you accomplish now, but can you make it happen again? So
yeah,
then I told myself during that time, like, okay, this is a drug. Like, this was my drug. I wanted that adrenaline. I was
hmm,
chasing that dream, and I was just crazy. I'm always in the gym, so I
yeah,
said, might as well go out there and fight. You know,
Yeah.
you go out there and you fight, and uh, you have fun. The crowd starts feeding into you,
Yeah.
everything, and then to me, I was winning every submission, so I was
Yeah.
always available. So I would
Yeah.
never say
You
no to
weren't getting
anybody.
any injury. Yeah, you weren't getting coming out of those fights hurt at all. So you were ready to go. You were fresh.
I was, yes. And remember, once you start wrestling and you start holding yourself and putting yourself through grinders, and to me, my biggest struggle has never been like the physical part. Like if you tell me to run 10 miles, boom, let's go.
Yeah, yeah.
To me, for a longest time, was just kind of like the mental aspect of it. Was just it. Man, your mind is so strong. Like if you just decide and you just with everything in your mind, just say I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Man, you're unstoppable. But see, it's for us to believe and get into that mindset. And I was telling this to my kids and my lady. Have you ever have to make an unexpected bill? Like something pops up and you're like, man, I have to pay it, but you got no money, and then all of a sudden you're like, somehow, some way that bill gets paid.
Yeah, you find a way.
You found a way. Well, to me, I was living with that mentality 24/7.
Yep.
That mindset in my mind was like man, and I would always tell myself, if I wasn't training, there's somebody out there right now, even right now while I'm
Hmm.
doing this interview, there's
That's
somebody
right.
out there training to kick my ass. He
Yeah.
wants what I built so hard for,
Hmm.
and eventually you can have it. It's whatever.
Yeah.
But during that time, I was like, to us, I was still that gangster kid. I was
Yeah.
like, you want this? Come get it. It's gonna take you forever to come get it. But
Yeah.
I would show up with my teammates to their fight, and I would have my medicals in hand and my mouthpiece, and I would be like, if somebody didn't make weight, I'm like, hey, like if
I'll
I'll
step
fight.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's how I got some of these fights. Uh,
And that's how you got that comfortable. But going real quick back to the parking lot where they're slapping you around to get into it because
oh
this is your
man.
first time. So how do you when you get in the octagon that first time? Does it actually feel different? Are you like, all right, I'm good, or were you still nervous even like the moment the bell rang?
So as I grew older, kind of
Yeah.
like my mentality shifted. Kind of like at first it was like I was I want to hurt you. I want to like I want to go in there, and then I
Hmm.
started becoming. So remember, back in the day, we were fighters becoming athletes. Nowadays, you got athletes becoming fighters.
That's right.
So now it was our mentality was way worse. You had guys like Chuck, Tito, all these like guys that would like throw haymakers, throw bombs, and if anybody landed it, you would get knocked out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you started seeing John Jones pulling moves like against Lyoto Machida, where you're just
Hmm.
like, man, what the like? How
Yeah.
did he grab that choke? Like, man, what? Wait, that's not right.
Hmm.
So so in that aspect, to me, it was when every time I stepped into the cage, I was like, my mentality was like, you're trying to take everything.
Yeah.
Like, if I can't beat you, and I did tell myself this in the Ultimate Fighter when I was fighting Shane Nelson. If you didn't get that bonus, that meant you had to go work and you were gonna struggle a little more.
Hmm.
If you had to get a finish, because if you didn't get a finish, you didn't get a bonus. And I remember,
Yeah.
I remember I was pulling that triangle and I said, you gotta pay rent, you gotta pay rent. I swear to God, that's what I
Wow.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I told myself, you got to pay rent, and I like just my drive was way different compared to.
Now, when we watch that fight, we're gonna think of that.
Yeah, there was a. So if you watch, go back to the Ultimate Fighter
Yeah.
against Shane Nelson. He kept telling me like, I'm gonna triangle you. Then next thing you know, I'm like, he's a brown belt under BJ Penn. I'm like, he might
Yeah.
triangle me. I went back to like the little like, oh, it might happen. So then all of a sudden, like we're in there, but I'm a way better wrestler. I'm like, you're not gonna wrestle me, like nobody wants to wrestle me. So I go in there, I take him down. I'm like beating him up. My striking wasn't really good, but
Hmm.
I had wrestling, so I felt comfortable.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, I shoot a triangle from the bottom. I remember we're getting kind of like towards the later of the round. I throw a triangle from the bottom, and I say, I have to pay rent. and then he's kind of getting out of it, and I chase him, and I end up with a triangle on top.
Yeah.
And that's when I pull his head, and that's when I tapped him in. I tapped him with a triangle after he said he was going to triangle me.
Yeah.
But to me, that it was, sorry, Shane, it wasn't personal. It was just I
Yeah,
had
it's
to
not
make that.
personal. I gotta
I
pay
had
your
to make,
rent, brother. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Let take us to Tough Man. It's an application you fill out, I imagine, right? Because it's not an invite thing. You just apply. They look at who applies, and then they select who they want to consider. So talk us through that experience.
So back in the day, you couldn't. There wasn't a trial. Now there's trials, different
Mm-hmm.
trials all over the world, where they will show up and they pick different selected individuals. Well, during that time, uh, so I had kind of moved. I went from Tucson to Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Dom went from Tucson to San Diego with the Fiero. But we
Mm-hmm.
would always call him cross train. And one day, Eric DeFiero said, "Hey, Efrain, why don't you apply for the Ultimate Fighter?" Kind of planted the seed, right?
Yep.
Never watered it, never did anything, and it just kind of set a singer. And I was like, man, I'm gonna do this video. They don't want to know anything about fighting. They don't want to know anything about fighting. All they want to know is they want to know about if you can make TV. That's
Yeah,
all they
if you're
want to
good
know.
for TV, if you're good for TV, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden they say, okay. So I send this application in, right? I sent
Yeah.
it, and we did this video. I remember I'm the team captain. Now I've been an All American now during this time because during Pima I became an All American. I placed at nationals. I got recruited by Grand Canyon University, so now I made a different turn. Now I'm at a higher division. Now it's a D1.
Mm-hmm.
At the time it was a D3. So now I'm at a higher level, right? Next thing you know, I send this up a video. This video was just us boys being boys. Like it had nothing of fighting. Like it was ridiculous. Like some of the things I would break into the guys' dorms, and if they weren't waking up the first time their alarm going off, I would get there and I would slap them with baby powder. So they would come out and their handprint. So like you know how when you hit the snooze, they would hit the snooze and then bop, I would slap them, be like, "It's time to get up," and I would go. So so next thing you know, and every single guy that came out had like a handprint like
Yeah.
on it. So they helped me get on the show, right? So
Is that video available still?
I have no idea where it is, man. I gotta find it somewhere.
You gotta find that. We gotta plug that in. Keep going.
So then I sent it in. I remember we were going to some fights in North Scottsdale. Traffic is with me at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're driving, and then all of a sudden, it was kind of after hours. It's almost 7 o'clock at night, and I get a phone call, and it was like, "Hey, we're calling from the production, from the UFC. We're letting you know that you've been one of the guys we select." I'm thinking business hours. I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So I gotta get cocky and confident, right? I'm talking smack because I think it's one of my friends just pulling a plug on me.
Dang.
Like, so I'm like, man, no UFC people be calling you after hours. Like, what the hell's going on? Uh, so I'm kind of get cocky, and next thing you know, they're like, okay, what day can you do it? And then they send me my itinerary. Where my itinerary sends, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it was
What was
for
that
real.
moment? Were you?
Like,
Was it? What did you celebrate it? Were you more
no,
like, "Holy shit,
I
this is
was more scared.
happening"?
I was more
Okay.
scared because I thought I fucked up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I fucked up because I was being cocky and I was being like now arrogant. So then all of a sudden, I fly, I do everything. Now, when you go into the first Ultimate Fighter, now, the first 7 Ultimate Fighters, there was only 16 guys.
Mm-hmm.
When we went, there was a lot because they're still doing the process, right? They're still doing the elimination.
Okay.
And so there was bands and bands and bands of guys.
Oh,
And I
damn! I
always,
didn't know that.
yeah, because now it's kind of hand selected and they're filtering it out. Every
Mm-hmm.
single day that you're there, you see less bands.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of like
Yeah. You're
you
getting
know,
cut left and right.
go. So next thing you know, in the morning we started kind of getting excited every morning when we would see the same guy. You'd be like, "Oh shit, you made it! Oh, you made it! Oh, okay." Next thing you know, um, here comes the big day, right? You're gonna sit in front of all the producers.
Okay.
So uh, they keep you isolated from people for a couple days. This
Okay.
is the first time, like, you're in a hotel room at the Palace Station. and you can't open the door. If you open the door, they grab you. You're goodbye. Thank you.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So they're giving you strict rules, right?
Yeah.
Um, so next thing you know, I'm out there. They put you in this room, and you start hearing guys on the back. Next, like from a distance, you start to see the producers, and you hear the producers loud trying to make things interesting for everybody in there. They're trying to make TV, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, what the hell's going on? So I start drinking coffee. I start getting like, and next thing you know, I had one too many cups of coffee, and they say you're up, and I'm like, man, and I told myself. Once again, that drawing, the paper,
Yeah.
right? And I continue to go back to this paper because no matter what I do ever do in life, I've always done this. I've always written down a game plan. It wasn't until I didn't put a game plan that I kind of stepped off the rail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, you have to stand out. And I remember telling them right before I walked out, I was like, you have to stand out. They see so many people.
Yeah.
They have to remember you. So I
Yeah.
walk in there and you sit down, and I'm nervous. And you ever been nervous where your butt clenches and you're just kind of like, it feels like you're stuck. You're just like,
I
oh my, like, like, I know my kids were like, what the?
I was like, I can't say that I have, but
Yeah, my wife's over here like, what the hell?
talking about
Like,
your butt clenching.
she's a nurse. She's cool. Uh, she's even worse. So next thing you know, I'm staring at this guy, and the first question the producer says, "Are you gay?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "Are you gay? Is this where you want to go on the Ultimate Fighter, so you can be around a bunch of guys?" I didn't know what they were doing. I was
Yeah.
like, "Wait, now I'm trying to play catch up, right?" I'm like, "I know, no, I'm not gay." Like he's like, "You're gay." So they're going off, just trying to see my reaction. I don't know
Yeah.
what the hell's going on at the time. Now I see it, but during that time I was like nervous. I was scared. I was like, and then less than 5 minutes go by, and he says, "You know what? Screw this crap. Next, get out of here." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Get the f out of here." I'm like,
Jeez.
"Oh man!" So I get up and I was like, "You serious? We're done?" They're like, "Do I have to tell you again?" And I was like, I was about to walk out, and I was like, "Stand out, stand out, stand out. You gotta stand out." So that I was like, "Man, like, hey man, well if I'm gonna get cut, I'm gonna get cut, whatever." And there was a fruit platter in the middle of the center of the table, right? So I
Okay.
grabbed the fruit platter and I was like, "You have me in this room. I'm going crazy. Like now I had too many cups of coffee. I need to relax them." And I grabbed this thing and I'm walking out. He's like, "Put that shit back." And I'm like, "Nope." And he's like, "Put it back." So I started licking all the fruit. You want it back? Here
Oh
you go.
shit.
And the guy says, "You're a fucking Mexican. Get the hell out." And I'm like, and I left and I was like, man, I didn't hear from them for like 2 weeks. That was the longest 2 weeks I've ever gone. Like I go crazy. Next thing you know, I get the phone call. "Hey, you can't tell anybody where you're going. You got to keep it secret. This is what you signed. This is what you did."
Yeah.
Uh, I was like, "What?" And so I made it on the show. I made it on the show. I was on my big way, and my 3 weeks before, 3 weeks before I left, my real dad died, passed away from cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So he passed away from cancer. I wanted to, even in his dying bed, I was like, "Oh, I don't have to go to this thing." And he knew how much it meant for me, so he was like,
Yeah.
"Nah, nah." He's like, "No matter what you do, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna do your best, right?" I was like, "All right." So the whole time I'm telling myself, "You're gonna go on the show, and you're gonna lose, and you're gonna come back to your parents and be with your family," you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, I kind of went down the cycle, and I was like, "Yeah." I get to the Ultimate Fighter. I look right next to me, and it's Ryan Bader. And Ryan Bader's like, we knew each other from wrestling, and the guy's like, "Hey man, that guy came." And I remember Ryan said to me, "That guy came a long ways to lose." And it was just kind of like what I needed to hear that time. Those simple words, just kind of like
Yeah.
it just brought
Came a
me back.
long.
It just honed everything back. It was like, yeah, he did. He came a long ways to lose. Next thing you know, I go in there and I end up submitting them. I get into the house, uh, and then from there, obviously, you guys can all witness everything on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
I would suggest you guys go back and rewatch it. We've been
Yeah.
actually watching it, rewatching it. Man, Jimmy Browning, God, he was annoying.
Your kids are finally at the age where they can enjoy the content, understand it maybe a little better.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you make the house by defeating Ito, rear naked choke, earn a spot in the semifinals. You defeat Shane Nelson with the mounted triangle. Advance to the finals by defeating Junie, which you did all of us a favor by getting that with the Darce choke. And then finally in December 13th, 2008, you defeat Philip Nover by unanimous decision to earn the six-figure UFC contract. Tell me what celebrating that night looks like, or is it as simple as being so exhausted that you just ended up like just going back home and relaxing? What does that look like?
So I win the Ultimate Fighter. My manager at the time, me and Brian Bader had the same manager. My manager at the time puts us together to have a joint after party together in
Okay.
Vegas at the Strip. Let me take you guys back. This is 2008,
Yeah.
2007, and 6. My mom was like, "No, mijo, you can't fight. You're going to college. No fighting. No fight. No fight. Go to school. Do something good." And I was like, "No, mom, I want to fight." Well, when they went to actually Dana White got my parents a via at the Palms for the finals.
That's so cool.
So they were at the via, and I kind of wanted to trick my parents to be like they messed up. That was my room because they looked like a house, and like I was like, God. So my mom, my dad were there. I had just won the show.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. I'm thrilled of everything. Not only that, but the Mexican PR team for the UFC was on me like
Yeah, you're the golden child.
now they were like right as soon as I get off. Efrain, like my phone's ringing like random numbers like, hey, like my hometown had a block party. My hometown of Somerset. They shut down the street, Main Street. They put a projector. Everybody was there. Cars were getting flipped in my hometown because I had won. Like it was that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So I win the Ultimate Fighter. I do all this. I go to a club, and as the night progresses, I see my mom, my uncles, and now family. The rich side of the family starts coming out. And I'm sorry if you guys are watching this news, watching this podcast. You guys, I didn't see you guys all through high school. So my rich side of the family starts coming out. I'm like, wait, what? I got rich family? Like, what the hell's going on? So they're all coming out, and then as the night's progressing, like I'm starting to become robotic. Kind of like everything starts starting to hurt, like really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like Philippe Nover hit really hard. Like I expected him to hit that hard, but he hit that hard. So next thing you know, I'm hurt everywhere. I told my mom it was probably the after party started at like 11. By 12:30, I'm like, Mom, I'm leaving.
Yeah, you need to get back.
My mom, my dad stayed the entire night, left home at 6 a.m. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you?
They celebrated right for you.
They did. And for me, I just couldn't move. And the next day, I get on a plane. We fly back. And as soon as I get back, I kind of go back to the drawing board, right? Now it's like media after media after media. I had no clue. I had no clue what had just happened. I didn't know I was the first Mexican-born fighter. I didn't know that I was about to be in a world tour. My lady always makes fun of this because they said, "Oh, I've done a world tour with Cain Velasquez," and she'd be like, "Oh, Mr. World Tour, like
Mr. World Tour."
Like bro,
Worldwide.
So then all
Mr. Worldwide, Mr. 305. What's your area code out there?
602.
602, Mr. 602. There we go.
So next thing you know, he like now it's Cain Velasquez and myself.
Yeah.
And we're sitting down with owners of Televisa.
Yeah.
We're in some of these shows that like I was forced to watch as a kid because we didn't have cable, and that was the only free TV that we got. So now I'm with these people and these sports commentators from like real Mexico, like holy
Yeah.
cow. I'm like, and it's just I'm trying to soak it all in, but I'm like, so then all of a sudden, like, I'm introducing this new kid, like this guy that how to fight everything for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like I'm getting a different version because now I'm like, man, we were at places nobody knew who we were.
Yeah.
Like everybody's like, you do what? MMA? And back in the day, it used to be they used to consider it cockfighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were nobody was very fond of
Yeah. It wasn't
a fond of.
accepted.
So then everybody kept telling us like, why do you do it? Like you're hurting yourself. You're like it's like cockfighting. I'll be like, no, it's a sport. This is
Yeah.
what we're doing, and this is how. And so that was mine and Cain Velasquez's job to
Yeah.
explain to people on shows why it's not a barbaric sport.
Yeah.
Because if and I get it right. Like let's say I'm scrolling to TV, and I run through a channel, and all of a sudden I see a guy fully bleeding, and I see another guy on top of him like hitting him. What do I really want my kids watching that? Like I'm
Yeah.
like. Huh? So next thing you know, we're there. It was we went to the first world tour. Didn't really like we didn't really do much, right? Like we're trying to introduce it, but not everybody was very welcoming.
Okay.
We continue to go. We continue to go, and in 2014 was the first time the UFC went out there, UFC 188. So I fly down there, and I go, and this is where it kind of hit me. We were in 2009 and 10 trying to introduce the sport.
Mm-hmm.
2014, I wasn't even able to go into I couldn't enter the weigh-ins. There was
Okay.
so many people blocking my way and trying to take pictures with me.
Yeah.
I had to be like, oh my god, this is crazy.
The growth of the sport. Yeah, that was a big moment and a leap for it there.
Oh yeah, we were into like this whole sport. We as Hispanics and people from South America, we're into like this boxing. Our boxing community is huge.
Yeah.
Like everybody wanted to be the Julio Cesar Chavez. And then all of a sudden, people started saying like, "I want to be Efrain Escudero. I
Yeah.
want to be Cain Velasquez. I want to be Calvin. Like." Then I'm like, "What? Like now my
Yeah.
mentality shifts, everything shifts. So now I started even believing on what I was preaching. So that in itself, it started becoming very easy. And man, my MMA career has so many ups, so many
Yeah.
downs. But remember, the only difference then to now is that we were trying to pave the way. We were trying to like, kind of like with no matter what you do in life, if you want to be a business person, go get a business mentor. People that have fallen, you want to learn on podcasts, how to do a podcast, how to do anything. Go through people that have done mistakes because
Yeah.
if you're my coach and you're my strength conditioning coach and you're fat, trust me, I'm not gonna listen to you.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way.
You want people that have the experience, and be willing to also ask the questions, which oftentimes at that age, maybe you're not even willing to ask questions, even if the people are there. So unless they're willing to give you that information, it might not hit your radar. We will get to some of the ups and downs before we jump too far to that real quick, just so that we close the loop on the Ultimate Fighter. You talked about mentors and some of the experience there. Anything memorable off the show that sticks out that was like outside of what we got to watch on TV? So like I'm thinking being coached by the Noguera, Antonio Noguera, Silva being there and being able to maybe pick his brain. Anything like that really stands out to you from the show?
Yeah, a lot of things that stand out from the show is obviously it's a reality TV show. If they were ever asked me to do it again as a participant, I'll probably say no. As a coach, I would do it again. I think everybody should kind of go through it, but it was a mindset that prepared me for life. Now I told you I had many ups and downs. I've been to jail before. Like I was in an extended stay. Right before I went to jail, I told myself, "Man, I've been on the Ultimate Fighter. Like I can get through this scrap."
Yeah.
Like so, it wasn't hard. It just like no matter what, everything prepares you for life, right? So just being able to watch Anderson Silva at the top, being able to see Dos Santos at first hand before anybody, Junior, before anybody knew him.
Yeah.
Like Gonzaga, the Nogueira brothers, and then
Yeah.
Daniel Valverde. Still to this day, Daniel Valverde, one of the best, Masters MMA. He has Kobe Covington, like he has he is the best jiu-jitsu guy I have ever rolled in my life. I can't take
Wow.
him down. I can't shoot. I mean, I can never do anything. He's that good.
Yeah.
And I swear, I'm gonna give him a props. They try to get me to so much. They try to get me to move to Miami in
Really.
2008. Minotaur was like, "Come down. I'll get you a place. I'll do this." And we'll be like I don't want to leave home. Like I was like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
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 I didn't want to leave college either. So I still kept going to college even after I won the show. So, um, but the biggest thing during that show is
Yeah.
just the experience, the bond, the ability to watch how humble people are, and during those high stakes. So
Yeah.
that to me is what I take.
Nice. Okay, so then coming off the show, you do the world tour, but then at the same time, you waste no time. You come,
World tour.
you come back, you get your KO victory against Cole Miller. And then now we can kind of lean into maybe the ups and downs. You said in past interviews that you felt like you lost your roots to the game due to some of the fame, the money, the popularity. Would you say that I want you to talk to us about these challenges? And is it fair to say that like the first glance for us watching just on TV was maybe like the fight against Evan? Did you feel like you were as prepared as you wanted to, or was that kind of the first domino that maybe fell?
No, I think that was the first time I ever excused the loss. Like, yeah, I didn't tap and I let my arm be broken,
Mm-hmm.
but like even just capturing that,
Yeah.
like I was just what I just said. Like even like I justified it by letting my arm be broken. I didn't want to tap. Like my will was there, but
Mm-hmm.
physically I wasn't. My mentality wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this was I had just got the Bud Light sponsor.
Okay.
I had a lot of money in my bank account.
Yeah.
I the drive no longer back in the day, and everything I told you is I couldn't afford a $200 payment, a monthly payment for a membership.
Yeah.
I was willing to scrub toilets for it.
Yeah.
Now I had so much money and I didn't want to go to practice.
Wow.
This is a shift change, right? Then
Yeah.
I started getting yes people around me. I'd be like, hey, let's go to the strip club on a Wednesday, or
Mm-hmm.
let's go to Mexico on a Monday.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it just became very easy. Everybody would be like, yeah, cool, let's go. And someone would be like, hey man, like I'll be like, let's go, and they'll be like, oh, I can't, man, I gotta work. How much you make a day? Here, I'm gonna pay you. Then all of a sudden I started like I caught myself on this roller coaster. It was
Yeah.
very unsteady, right?
Yeah.
It's something that you don't want, but it never affected me. Why? Because we were making that much money,
Yeah.
and this is when I kind of like first started hitting me. The moment that you spent almost 63K in less than a week, and I'm like, what are you doing with life?
Yeah.
And this is where my mom and my stepdad kind of pulled me to a side, and we're like, what are you doing? Um, my daughter was born. We had the first breakup, the separation. That's when I started making the phone calls to my friends because the money stopped coming, but the lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
was still trying to survive. It was on a lifeline, and I called and nobody was answering. This was down. This is
Yeah.
like I'm on a one-way course.
Yeah.
And then my daughter's 8 months. She's actually We're out here in California right now. A big shout out to Amaya and Abel. It's their birthday this weekend. Well, it was on the 31st, so big shout out to them. They're out here. She turns 12 and he turns 10. Um, but that was the first time I kind of felt so alone in my own. Not even the homies. Like back in the day, I even had the OGs on my back.
Yeah.
Like I felt so alone. And then 2012, Benson, I was already training at the lab with Benson. Benson had kicked me so hard with a mouthpiece. He cracked my tooth in half, but
Oh
it
shit.
cracked it inside my gum. So every time I would breathe in, it would hurt so bad. And I was awake at the middle of the night, like every time it would hurt. And I don't know what kept me awake during that night. And I heard a noise in the front yard. It was just my daughter and I. And two-story house. I was kind of like, okay, whatever. Heard the noise again. I'm like, man. So I'm going down to check on it. Next thing you know, one of my windows breaks.
Yeah.
I ran back up. Long story short, I ended up getting in a shootout inside my own house. Uh,
Dude.
I can hear my daughter like from a far distance, but I know that if I run to her, they're going to shoot in that direction. So I'm staying away, shooting in another direction. Everything happened so damn fast, so damn quick that I did not know what was going on. Like I didn't know where my phone was at. I didn't know anything. Like like nothing. When I first shoot, like everything became bliss. As soon as they started
Yeah.
shooting back, like nothing. Like I wiped everything out.
Yeah.
I don't remember everything. Like the light flashes before your eyes, you're scared, and that's when I was like, I wasn't prepared for it. I mean, people now I work with hand in hand law enforcement. Law enforcement individuals go through a PTSD and it affects you, and it's trauma. It's something that you're not used to.
Yeah.
And like even I'm pretty sure like nurses, doctors, or everything, when the first time they ever have like a really bad cold, they're
Yeah.
like adrenaline coming pumps. For me, I'm in survival mode, right? Like I've been I've been fighting, I've been doing everything, and all of a sudden I'm in a shootout. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy. Like the gangster
Very
DNA.
different. You're cold sweating at this point. Like, yeah, it's just a different feeling. So, and
Yeah,
yeah, so tell me what happens that night.
I literally so that shootout happens. There was probably like I thought my gun was out of ammo, like not out of ammo, but I was like short, so I wanted to re-switch, and this is where it kind of brought me back, right? So light flashes before your eyes. I remember dropping the magazine, like I pressed this to release the magazine. The magazine hits the floor, and it hears a big thump like noise because it's still full. I didn't know how many
Hmm.
shots I shot, like
Yeah.
so it's still full. I grab it, I put it back, but now in my mind I'm thinking, now they know where I'm at.
Okay.
Here it comes, here it goes. And I stand there for about 45 minutes thinking to myself, it's a waiting game. He's waiting or I'm waiting. It's just gonna happen.
Yeah.
Next
Yeah.
thing you know, I don't know where my phone's at. No cops are showing up. Nobody's showing up. I'm like, everything's going 100 miles an hour. I can still hear my daughter's already like back to bed, back to sleep. She was 8 months, so not like she can walk anywhere or nothing. And that's when I
She
was
put
like,
herself back to bed like she just fell
yeah,
back to sleep.
I'm pretty
That's
sure she did.
insane.
So then I was
Wow.
like, you know what? Screw this. And I was like, so then all of a sudden I just run downstairs. I clear the house. Nobody's there. The door's open. The window's broken. I ran upstairs. I remember this. I grabbed my daughter. We had a dog by the name of Lexi. Lexi is under the bed next to my daughter, scared too.
Hmm.
So I grab my daughter. I wrap her up in a blanket, and I just kind of like hold her right in front of me. So if I get shot, like it's gonna be in the back, right? So I just run. I run downstairs. I run to the neighbors. Knock on the door. I have a gun in my hand. I'm like in shorts, no shirt, a baby wrapped in my hand, and a gun. What do you think the neighbor does? Doesn't want to open the door.
No.
He's like, hey, I'm your neighbor, and I keep trying to tell them they won't open. They're like, unload the mags, like take the gun out. So I just throw the gun. I'm like, please just open. So they open. They take my daughter. We call 911. They're trying to like calm me down, like everything that's going on, and the cops just say like, we'll get an officer out there. We're getting a lot of calls. Something's going down in that area. So I was like, okay. After like an hour waiting, I got tired. So I went. I picked up all the bullet casings. I picked up everything. Next thing you know, I just go back there. I left all the bullet holes everywhere. I never cleaned them. I never fixed them. It was just a constant reminder. Like all my friends would go like, "Dude, close these.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you like fixing this?" And I was like, "It's just a constant reminder. Like, what how life can be taken away that easy, that
Dude,
fast."
that's scary. That's scary. And it's wild that no cops showed up. I'm like waiting for you to tell me like by the
They
time
never
I'm
showed up.
knocking on the door, they show up. They never showed up.
They never showed up. I mean, they're busy, man.
What city were you in at this time? Where were you living?
Levine, like South Phoenix.
South Phoenix? Dang. And so nobody shows up. That's wild.
I
And you
mean,
never really found out what happened, right? Someone was just trying to break in. It was targeted though, right?
so the next day, 2 houses down, our neighbor, apparently her husband leaves to work like at 4 a.m. or something like that. So
Yeah.
she thought he left. All of a sudden, as soon as he leaves, she said she heard like a doorbell, like her doorbell, like he
Yeah.
rang. So she thought, oh, he forgot something. Opens the door, turns around. There's a guy with a gun. He tied her up, robbed her, everything, robbed her for everything she had.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang.
So it was just kind of like it
It
was
was a
just
targeted neighborhood maybe at that point.
Well, I mean, obviously that's not the safest area you want to be within Phoenix, So
Yeah.
yeah,
Dang.
but so that happens. Obviously, um, that
That
was kind of like a down. But now remember,
kinda. I think that's for sure a down.
yeah. But obviously, we all live and learn. We went through our process, we went through our battles, and I value life a little better.
Yeah.
Trials and tribulations. Then, I mean, long story short, I start to rebuild. I just
Yeah.
say, okay, here we go again.
Is this around your first comeback to the UFC or your second or
Yes,
your
first
third?
one, first one.
First one. Okay.
So I'm like, all right, let's start rebuilding. We start kind of like emphasizing everything,
Yeah.
and then it just happens to us. It kind of like it hits me. It hits
Yeah.
me. I start making things personal, and I have this like, I'm gonna do it. Like So
Mm-hmm.
then I start becoming back again. That like, I don't know if you guys see me now. I'm in shape. I'm like because this guy right here, my son, right here,
Mm-hmm.
guys. So you guys know him right
Yep.
here.
Yep. Yep.
Him, he thinks he's gonna beat me one day. So I'm not gonna stay. I don't care to beat anybody. Anybody like if you want to go and fight me, like let's go. I'll fight you. But if you win, cool, you got to win. But there's no way. I'm gonna stay in shape and I'm gonna stay ready for at least till he's 18.
It's a matter of time before he gets you, Efrain. It's a
There's no
matter of
way.
time.
There is no way. There's no way he's ever gonna get me. Like
He looks
no way.
lengthy. He's about to get you in a Darth choke.
Him, he's not lanky. Now his sister is. Like the sister is like my daughter Amaya, and then big boy Abel over here, man. They're ruthless, Abel's he's like a little linebacker, He's like a little big and he's like short and stocky. You got, yeah, and then you got Sebastian here. Every day we'll be walking around. Yesterday we were walking around Cabela's, like we're walking the store, and he's all the shh, 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 shh. Like shh, shh, shh. And I'm like, oh man, I can see myself. That
It's
was me
coming.
back
The
in the
day's
day.
coming.
I was like, God, but no, he ain't gonna beat me, man. I ain't gotta be the best in the world no more. I don't have that drive anymore to be on the top. I don't like you want
You
to.
have a different drive. Your drive is to be the best father, to them and
Well,
provide and be an inspiration. Yeah.
who can say that they can whoop their dad? I couldn't.
Yeah.
Like he won't be able to either. Like my dad had
Uh,
that thing over me. They had this thing called the eyes. I don't know if you guys know about it nowadays.
mm-mm.
Like at the store, he'll like look at you and like just with his glare, you'd be like, "Oh fuck, I fucked up." Like, God damn it. Now I'll stare at these guys at the store and they'll be like, "What?" I don't know what to do because I never got that far with my parents. Like
Yeah,
so. I gotta go get mentors, like I told you. Go
you
get
gotta
mentors.
you gotta go get mentors. Get them in line before they put you in line. You're outnumbered. You guys are all outnumbered. You got 3-2.
Oh man, hey, but I'm dating a Salvadorian, so she's
Oh,
I don't
Shout
think
out
I'm.
to your wife. My mom is Salvadorian.
I don't think. I don't think I here like.
The belt hurt.
The belt hurt.
Right there.
Hi.
That in itself, she's just so you guys all know, big shout out to everybody, every girl out there that puts up with us fighters. The weight cuts, the grumpiness, the not eating, the short bothered, the everything, guys. I now see it. Um, I've been doing it for 19 years professionally.
Yeah.
I wrestled a lot before that, but when it comes down to it, guys, I, I hit the top of the mountain. I went down a mountain. I go back up, and no matter what, I always tell myself, and like with my podcast, what I have is I always tell myself, what is success? Success is a short period lived to a small goal that you set yourself to.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter what, you would say that my life is a success story, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Won the Ultimate Fighter, first Mexican-born fighter, traveled the world, had a lot of fun, enjoyed it, but he also got into shootouts. He also got into darker nights. He was felt alone. Um, like went through this whole battle in itself. Like nobody sees. Everybody sees the glorified. Like, oh, I want to be a UFC fighter, but take the fame and the money away. Would you still want to be it? Would you still want to fight?
There's a lot of grind and process to it.
Yeah. So so embrace the grind. When you embrace the grind and embrace the struggle,
Yeah.
because there's beauty in success and there's beauty in failure.
Yeah.
I was talking to a person from India, and
Mm-hmm.
he told me, Efrain, I came to America because America gives opportunity. He says, but you guys look at it different. I say, why? He owns 28 hotels now, including in Disneyland. And I was like, why? He's all like, because you guys don't embrace the struggle. So what do you mean with that? He says, in India, if you are suffering today, in 20 years, you're still going to be suffering. In America, if you struggle today, accept, okay, I'm struggling, know it, but like boss up and watch what happens in 5 years.
Yeah, you can see progression versus in India, there's not that opportunity to get progression.
Mexico, like Brazil, all these like countries
you name
that,
it.
opportunity in itself. So America is embracing the struggle. So when it comes down to it, guys, embrace the struggle. So when you are having a down moment, just take a moment, just breathe, because no matter what, something has you there, and nothing's gonna happen by accident. Nothing happens by accident.
Yeah.
Let me fast forward.
Go for it.
Let me fast forward a little bit. I mean, obviously, because these kids that want to go to Knott's Berry Farm.
Yes.
So let me fast forward this real quick. Embrace the struggle, right? I was the head coach of the Ultimate Fighter in 2006, 15. 2015. A year before, 2015, 2014, I called my first retirement. I said, I'm done. I'm done fighting. I'm not getting nowhere. I'm going to go be so I applied for the juvenile detention center. So I said, I'm going to go work with juveniles, try to help them out, shape their life, help them out. 1 month into my job, I was like, screw this crap. I'm going back to fighting.
Yeah, it just wasn't for you.
My drive wasn't it wasn't there. How many of us have sat there and wondered all our lives, what can it be? Like to me, I would never sit there and wonder if I wanted to make a trip, and that's what I'm trying to look for now on a quality of life. My lady always tells me like, oh, I want to travel. To me, I'm like, I'm done traveling alone. I've seen the whole world.
Yeah,
like
You've done that. Yeah,
I've done that. I went down to Africa and there was no forest and stuff. It was like real buildings, like you're in America, and it's like, what's going on? Like, I've seen things like that. I've seen Mexico. I've seen Canada, Azerbaijan. I didn't even know it existed. Like, I seen things that, if it wasn't for the sport, I wouldn't have seen. It wasn't for that one day that I decided I was not supposed to, that I was supposed to be people I wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah.
That was my beginning of everything, the whole game plan. So I'm gonna leave you guys with this. Okay,
Yeah.
I know we'll make it a part two. I'll leave you guys with this. For everybody out there chasing a dream, no matter what it is, write down your goal and your dream. Write it down. What do you expect from life? Because life owes you nothing. Uh, write down everything. Pull out a map of the United States. To me, I put Lincoln, Nebraska. Why? I don't know. I don't know why I picked Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
Then just mark it there. Okay, Lincoln, Nebraska, and then set all your goals and your dreams in Lincoln, Nebraska. You're always striving there. There is two. There's two roads that are going to lead you there to Lincoln, Nebraska. For me, it's the 101 needs and the 101 wants. There's only two of them that are going to take me there. Okay. If I my for me, it's quality of life, right? That's my goal. I
Yeah.
want my kids and myself to be able to go to anywhere and buy whatever we want from a restaurant. We want to be able to look at the menu from left to right instead of right to left. For those, just think about that.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
able to
You don't
look
want to have to look at the price first. You just want to
exactly.
be able to enjoy ordering and not have to worry about your bank account.
That's right. So think about it like that. So then all of a sudden, that's what I want. So a want. What is a want from that? Okay, a want is, do I want to go out and spend a bunch of money? No, not really. Do I want to? Do I want a family, or do I need a family? Oh, I need a family. I need to feed
Hmm.
my family. So all of a sudden, how many in life? How many of us are stuck in Oregon or in Washington trying to get to Lincoln, Nebraska? We don't have direction to our goals, our dreams, or what we want in life. I know sometimes we're like dabbling and we're like, whatever. And it's okay, but it don't expect to get to your destination of where you want to go, because I didn't know what my expectation was at one point.
Hmm.
At one point I say I want to get to college, and then I got to college, and then I was like, okay, well, now where are we gonna go? And then, okay, I'm gonna make it to fighting. I made it to fighting. Okay, Ultimate Fighter. Outside of the shoe, I was, left the UFC.
Yeah.
I went back to the UFC. I traveled the world. Went back in the UFC. I was the head coach. So it's a put direction to where you're going, because if not, you're gonna end up at a gas station in California trying to get to Nosberry Farm.
I love it. Well, look, why don't you tell folks about your podcast real quick? Maybe where they can find you as well, and then we'll let you guys go on your way.
Hey guys, everybody, I want to do a segment two. I want to do a segment two with you, a continuance about this. All right. So
Yeah, there's a
we
lot of
left
to
off.
unpack.
Yeah, we left right off at the period where, first coming out, going into the second of the UFC. We'll continue from there. There's many ups and many downs, guys. No matter what you want to do in life, if you want to do it, don't allow anybody's self limitations tell you can't do it. Everybody, how many times have I heard you can't do it? Even my mom told me you can't fight. What are you doing fighting?
Yeah.
But once I won the Ultimate Fighter, that little old lady was in every single picture with me. Like,
She was
oh
at
my
Vegas
God.
at the after party till 6
Yeah, she
a.m.
was. But before that, she was never there. Um, but when it comes down to it, guys, embrace the struggle. I have a the Naked Raw Truth is one of the podcasts. It's just pretty much we'll be telling my life story,
Yeah.
not only mine, but how many of days do we go, and we kind of go through every single day crisis. No matter what you do, guys, talk about your feelings. I've been so down in my life where I contemplate the worst, and biggest thing is it's a strong family, a strong union, a sharp friendship, a strong everything. starts with communication. So work on that. Effie Escudero on all my social media platforms. Once again, guys, I owe you guys a part 2. But all my kids here, hey guys,
Yeah, they're
say
about to
hi.
beat you up.
Say hi.
Guys, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great time today. Make sure he spends all his money. Bye, guys.
Once again, guys, thank you guys, and thank you guys for your guys' time. I will see you guys soon.
I appreciate you, brother. I'm going to drop you off. We'll stay in touch. Thank you very much. Well, there you have it, folks. This has been our episode with Efrain, Hecho En Mexico, Escudero, part 1, hopefully, because there's so much more to unpack. His story was so inspiring. There was so much that I learned that was brand new to me as well. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing. If you have any follow-up questions for Efrain, drop it in the comment section. I'd love to incorporate that into part 2. Until next time, this has been Doers Take Breaks. We are out of here, y'all. Peace.